Welcome to Style Masterclass, the podcast that teaches women to look stylish and feel confident so that they can show up ready to conquer and slay no matter what size they are. I'm your host, Miss J. You ready?
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Style Masterclass Podcast. I have such an amazing guest today. We were chatting away beforehand about adult play dates and how we didn't have those when we were younger. And I was like, we probably should hit record. Otherwise, we're just going to chat each other's ear off. So I'm going to let my dear friend and guest introduce themselves, and then we will get going. Take it away, friend.
Hello. Hi, I am Chris Hale, and I am a coach for creatives and coaches, actually. Yeah. And I have a podcast called You Need a Bitch. You need a coach, bitch.
You need a bitch coach.
You need a bitch coach.
Both work, oddly.
They do, actually. They both kind of work. But yeah, you need a coach, bitch. And yeah, it's really my passion to help creatives get their shit together in terms of, I guess I want to say monetizing what they do, right? Or just having more of a shift in the way creatives, specifically like performers, but also, any kind of artist or creative, like shift their mindset around money and like what it means to make a living as a creative, and kind of like distance themselves from all of this like starving artist, identity that we've all grown up with, because I think it's so prevalent. And if we can shift that, right, I think it's like,
oh, hell yeah.
You know what I mean? And it doesn't even have to be about money, but it's like the whole identity, right?
I think it should a little bit be about money, though. And I say this from one creative artist to another, but you helped launch the careers of multiple dancers. That was your jam for
that was my jam.
Decades. So tell us kind of your background. And I think you bring such a unique perspective because you were in the trenches of like helping performers craft careers for themselves.
Yeah. So I was a performer, and I was always a dance teacher, though. I started teaching dance when I was 15. So like dance education was always really important to me. And that also gave me a lot of opportunities to like exercise my like choreographic voice and kind of develop my own creativity within the arts. So I wouldn't say I transitioned into teaching because it was always something that I did, but I transitioned into it more fully, where by like 21, I was teaching at one of the biggest drop-in studios in the world in New York City called Broadway Dance Center. And then I went on to start teaching at competitive dance studios around the Northeast. I started a contemporary training program, contemporary dance, with my husband in 2009. And that's actually kind of where my coaching journey started too, because we started like my journey with like all the coachy stuff and all the like Eckhart Tolle and Brené Brown and Marianne Williamson. Like I started bringing that into like the classroom and using it like thought work, essentially, which I didn't know what that was at the time, but using that to help really inspire the dancers, not only to like push themselves physically, right, around what we were trying to achieve in terms of what they could do with their bodies, but also like how they could think about themselves, which then in turn like affects how they think about themselves in the world, right? So whether they're going on auditions or they're just like going into the world and like interacting with other people, right? The way that they were thinking about themselves and the power of their minds was like shifted because of that kind of work that we were doing through dance.
And it's interesting because most dancers, they have a limited career span as a dancer, at least. That's, normally what, and you're nodding. This is on YouTube, but if you can't see him on the podcast, he's nodding. So, we're working within that like time period. Like, what was the most common thing that you would see like dancers thinking about? Like, hey, my career span is going to be this limited amount of time.
It's so interesting because I think in a way people don't like to think about it, right? There's not a lot of like forward thinking in terms of the fact that like you're going to be 40 and you might not want to do this anymore, right? And we are actually seeing more and more dancers like dance well into their 40s, into their 50s. Like it's becoming more common because people are taking care of their bodies better, right? The the way we think about training has completely shifted. It's not as like abusive and just like break yourself. Like that's not the message that's going out overall anymore. But I do think that like it creates this sort of like urgency, right? Like everything needs to happen now and everything feels like so important. If I don't get that next job, right? And like the level to which we have to like keep ourselves in shape and keep ourselves looking good and the investment into how we look and how we present ourselves, right? Because we're not going to look this way forever. We're not going to have this body forever, right? So there's a lot of that baked in.
And I mean, I see this still now, like even my clients who aren't artists, I actually coach a lot of high achievers who are artists in their own ways. They're creative in their own way. But I think there's still this idea that there's this ticking clock on style. There's a ticking clock on beauty, and you're not going to look the way you did in your 20s. So a little fuck it sort of itis comes in.
Yeah. And it's like, yeah, you get to that point where you think that you're going to reach like 40 and you're just supposed to not care anymore or something, right? Like I got to get it all in now. And it is really like, I mean, kind of, I did this one gig where I was going to be like stripping while I was on stage, right? It was a benefit and it was meant to be like risque and it sort of had that thing going on. I remember my mom being like, well, yeah, I mean, you should definitely do that now. Like, while you look the way you do, right? It was like,
oh God, I love moms. They're so amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. So.
I remember shopping with my mom for a costume and I was in a long story, but anyway, we were shopping for a costume and she wanted me to wear this dress that I was like, I cannot, I am half naked. I feel like a hoe in the dress. Right. And my mom was just like, and this is like my 15-year-old self. My mom was like, oh no, honey, if I look like you, you don't even know how I'll be dressed. Mom, I love you because I know you listen to the podcast. Like, I remember thinking it was like, what the heck? Like, but she was like, get it, girl.
Yeah, I know. It's like, and it's such an interesting thing, right? Like, I mean, I will say, like, as a dancer and like, I've always had a very tumultuous relationship with my body, right? Like the body dysmorphia is like very prevalent. Obviously, we all know, like in the dance world. And so, yeah, it's like, to have someone else have an opinion about your body that you don't have, I think is really like, it kind of like F's with your brain. And like, I saw a photo of myself, a friend sent it to me from a time I was on Saturday Night Live and I was like 21 and shirtless. And I looked at it and I was like, oh my God, I can't, like what I thought about myself at that time. It's like, I know so many, especially so many women have this story, right? Like, where you look back at pictures of yourselves in your 20s when you were like, you hated the way you looked. And you're like, I'm going to be 42 at the end of the month. And I'm like, I looked like that, right? Like it doesn't match up with like the way you saw yourself. And then now too, it's like, well, that shouldn't have mattered. And it like, there's all that stuff too, where like, we're all deconditioning ourselves from like the beauty standards that we were brought up with. But it's definitely like a mind fuck.
Oh, totally. Totally. And I think it speaks to like a bigger issue, like not even just like people recognizing that our bodies looked a particular way and we weren't in a place to receive that information. But I also think sometimes this applies to like the work that we do in the world. And someone says, oh, you're so good. You're so brilliant. You're so talented. You're so amazing. Effusive, amazing praise. And I know you're just like shaking your head. I feel the same way, James. So like, oh, okay, all right, already. And you can't even receive it. You're just like graciously nodding, but there's a blankness behind your eyes.
Oh, it happened to me literally last night. My husband came in like from being out and he was like, I just want you to know you're so brilliant. I just think you're so brilliant. And I was like just like a silent nod, you know, and he was like, why can't you receive this? And I was like, I'm receiving it. Like I was not receiving it.
You're like, my eyes are blank, but my face says I'm receiving it.
I was like, thank you so much, honey. Thank you so much.
But it's part of the condition, right? So, I mean, obviously we struggle with things that we actually coach on. We love the humans, but we're real. And we both share very openly the things that we struggle with. So how would you coach someone through that smiling, blank stare. I am not in a place to receive this praise.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's like we have to get down to like what is uncomfortable about it. So I guess that would be my first question is like, why is a moment like that uncomfortable? And I think for me, it's definitely like it is wrapped up in like the messaging that I've always received around like my ability, my talent growing up, right? Like that was kind of, and my looks, right? My mom tells this story where she's like, when you were born, you were just the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. I have an older sibling. Like, and
so
like,
good.
I know. And the messages were very much like, he's the smart one. He's like got the mathematical brain. He is like the academic. And I'm like, pretty and talented. And so like, it's like when getting that kind of praise still feels really loaded. It feels really scary. It's like when you're praising me for something like this, it feels like, well, now I have to keep performing at this level or else I'm not like, I'm not worth anything, right? If you're telling me I'm so brilliant, well, then I have to keep being brilliant. Like, and that's where my brain goes is like, well, then I have to keep it up. And so it's like, I would kind of, if I was coaching someone that like that, kind of be looking for what are you making it mean that someone's telling you this? Like, what does it translate into for you? For me, it translates into, well, I don't know if I can keep up this level of brilliance, or I am not going to look this way forever, or I don't even think I look beautiful. So like, and I didn't do anything like to make that happen. So there's all these things where you're like, I don't know what to do with that.
Yeah. And I think you touched on something important is like, I have to maintain this. Like I have so many clients who've gotten like excellent reviews at work. And then they're like the sense of dread of like, oh, now I'm going to have to, I had a crazy year. I feel burnt out. I don't want to have to do this again forever. Oh my God.
Right. It's that forever piece, right? Because that's really what it feels like. It feels like, well, this is the new bar. Like I just have to keep meeting this bar and for the rest of my life. It's so black and white, right? It's so finite.
And it's not true. So dear friend who's listening, if you suddenly are like sweating slowly and you have a little bit of like boob sweat coming in, you're like, damn it, I can't believe we're talking about this. We want to rest assured a few things. It's not true that you have to perform at X, Y, or Z level forever ad infinitum. Like that's actually not true. It's a story your brain has come up with to keep you safe and help you feel like you belong to the rest of the crowd that is giving you that praise. Please know that you get to decide what performance level you want to perform at, what performance is required or not. Like you really have a lot of agency in all those teeny tiny steps. Please don't mishear us. We're bringing this to light because this is something that so many high achievers, so many creative high achievers in particular really struggle with.
Yeah. And I think it's so important to realize that like the lesson from the arts, which is weird, right? It's a weird lesson. But if you can sort of extract this particular lesson from all the other BS that goes on there, is that art is meant to be messy. Art is meant to it's a snapshot in time of a creative process that was probably a hot mess at some point, right? Like it's not supposed to be this like perfect process. It's a practice, which I think is important. Like the distinction between like a process is something that you can follow step by step, right? To get a desired result every time. It's like, I'm going to do the process and I know very much what's going to happen. But when we're in practice of something, we're learning, we're iterating and reiterating, and we're failing so much. And that part of, especially like with any skill that you're trying to build, but I think about like as a dancer physically, it's your body. And we like to think that we have control over our bodies, but we have very little control over our bodies in so many ways. And so you're just constantly practicing like, all right, like how do I push myself to the next level? I need to fail to do that. I need to see what's not working. I need to try to recreate this as best I can to get my muscles to fire and my neural pathways to be built. And that's not going to look good the whole time. So if we can extract that lesson, I think it's one of the most important things that Now, let's be real. Most creatives are resisting that process while they're in it, right? Most people aren't like leaning into that. They're not like, oh my God, this is so amazing. Like it just looks like crap the whole time until it looks good, right? Like that's not something that, because of all the BS that's surrounding like what it's quote unquote supposed to look like in the journey. But we do eventually learn it, or it's like a compartmentalized thing where it's like, all right, like I fell out of that turn, I'm going to do it again. I fell out of that one, I'm going to do it again. Like there's a commitment to keep going, even though we're sort of rejecting the messiness of it at the same time.
I love that that's such a lesson from art. And it's Art Month inside of Modern Charm School, which is why I have all these amazing artists and creatives coming to you on the podcast in the month of May 2023, if you're listening to this in the future. Right. One of the cool things is like pulling out that, okay, what can we distill? And I think that's such an amazing lesson. And what was coming to mind for me is I remember working with a choreographer because I used to dance when I was younger. And I remember they were like, no, it's pa-pa-cha. And like they were doing a dance move and they were using those words, and you're nodding your head because you know exactly what I'm talking about, right? They're using it to describe a movement. He's like, pa-pa-cha. And I'm like, I'm doing pa-pa-cha. And then I would repeat the movement back to him. He goes, no, you're doing pa-pa-ch. I'm like, no, I'm not. And we had this whole stupid argument because my leg was not placed exactly where he thought it should be. So instead of a cha, it looked to him like a ch. And this was the weird, bizarro argument we were having, right? And I just think like, I don't think in the time I was like, oh, I'm failing at this. I'm just like not understanding what it is you're trying to communicate to me that you're looking for. Right. And like, I think sometimes we get so caught up in a process that we forget it is in fact a process.
Yeah. There's so many things there for me. One of them is like, okay, well, you need to be able to communicate what you want from the dancer. Like my dance teacher, like brain is coming on, like, because I mean, we've all been there. Like we've all been with the like, it's like a boom ba ah, right? Like like, okay, that's teaching me the musicality, and it might be teaching me like the like feeling of the movement. But if there's like a placement of the leg, like we need to be a little bit more specific about that.
Tell me what you want me to do.
Like I think that's amazing. But I think that also speaks to like how we're all human and we're all limited, right? In terms of like kind of even like, yeah, specifically articulating what we're looking for, and especially in any kind of creative process. And I think whether it's like, you know, my coaches who I'm working with who are building businesses, or my creatives who are like writing screenplays, it's that like, how am I communicating to my audience, right? To my people, like what it is I'm trying to say. And I think that's really hard to kind of figure out how to do.
And I love that you talk about how hard it is, because I think sometimes people are like, well, just communicate clearer, just be clearer, be more concise, say it more simply, talk to a sixth grader, blah, 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 right? And you're like, it's back to that pa-pa-cha versus pa-pa-cha. And it's like, I'm trying, can you tell me, like, give me more than that. Just tell me what the process is for achieving that, like getting my own voice out into the world. And that is, my friends, like a work of a lifetime. And it is so much harder than a trite like banality where we just say like, use your own voice.
And sometimes we don't even know what that is. Really, we really don't. And I think this goes back to kind of, right, when people see you a way that you don't see yourself, right? If we go back to like the way that my mother saw me versus the way I saw myself. I don't know if you're into human design in this world.
I have had my chart done. I don't fully understand it, but
yeah, there's like, I mean, I'm like on the sort of the very tip of like working with it, but I'm a reflector, which means we have like no defined centers, which essentially means there's nothing consistent in our, like, it's like our chakras, right? Like nothing's grounded consistently. And so I feel that like wholeheartedly, like, I'm like, who am I today? And like, it's always been this joke that, and reflectors, because they don't have any like defined traits specifically, like we sample the energies and traits of the other types. And so growing up, and still now, like if I'm with someone for long enough, and I mean, this could be a trauma thing, like a fawning thing, but like I start to take on other people's personalities. Like, or if I'm watching a television show, I become an amalgamation of like certain, like a few of the characters, like really easily, because I'm just kind of always like sampling a little bit of like, oh, that feels interesting. Let me try that on. That feels interesting. And so for me, I realized recently I started doing some like working on branding, which I've had a business for like a year and very like simple, lean, like we're just going to do a simple one-on-one. Like I have a website that I threw together, which is like janky. It's so janky.
Get my first website. You could look at the website Time Machine. Y'all could go see it. It was,
it's like, I mean, it started out fine. And then I like changed my niche and then I like changed like some of the wording. And then like, I keep like updating some of the wording, but like, it's not cute. But I'm working with my branding person and she showed me the first design theme that she had created and my entire body just like relaxed in like the moment I saw it. It was like an alignment that I hadn't felt because she saw me. Like she was showing, I was seeing myself reflected back to me in a way that I've never been able to articulate. So it's like, it's not that easy to just find your own voice. Like, where are you? Like, how, you know what I mean?
No, I mean, that's why when we do personal style statements with clients in our program, I'm like, okay, I'm going to repeat back to you some words that I think, but you let me know how it feels. And you could just see, I told you, like, when you told me that story, I was like, you had the magic moment, right? Like, you just feel like, oh, yes, that's it. That's me. Wait, that's me? How, like, and you get that moment. And I just love creating that for clients. I know exactly what you're talking about. But like, I'm curious about this because I'm curious about the other side, because I don't always ask clients this when they get like the style statement, or in your case, the branding that feels like a reflection of you. Like, how did it feel to kind of now step into the identity of the person who's represented by like a series of images or those colors, or to kind of take that on?
It feels very focusing. It's interesting because like one of the images is like of Marilyn Monroe blowing a pink bubble, which like I feel like I'm stepping into that every day. Like like I was stepping into that every day anyway, just walking down my stairs feeling fabulous, like this like beautiful blonde bombshell. But it's super focusing. It's like it's helping me clarify like what I want to talk about and the way I want to talk about it, and really leaning into some of the things that I almost think are frivolous about me. Like if you were to see me walking down the street, like you would probably, sometimes people I think are a little bit intimidated by me, or I was walking through the mall and I primarily wear all black. So I'm walking through the mall in like a black sweater with a black coat with a black jean and a black bag. And like this woman was like, you look so chic. Like
that's how I would describe you. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, right. And so that totally doesn't show this like other side of me, where my sister saw the branding and she's like, oh my God, it's so you. It's clean, it's classy, and it's bubbly. And I was like, oh yeah, like I am bubbly, but I don't always bring that to the world. Like it happens in a conversation like this or with my clients. Like we laugh. Me and my clients laugh all the time. We're like we're crying together. Like I'm crying with my client and we're laughing, right? Like it's like there's this levity that I'm able to bring to the work that I think not everyone gets to see, that you would not assume exists if you were just seeing me walking in the mall, right? And so I think it's helping me bring that out more, as well as like being more comfortable with saying like, oh yeah, I'm going to bring this to the world. Like I was singing through the like Billboard Top 100 from 1998 on Instagram one day. Like,
oh my God. Do you feel like it gave you permission to be more like yourself? I'm curious.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. Yeah, I think that's exactly what it is. It's like that person that will like show up on Instagram and sing through the Billboard Top 100, you know, like is me. And it's giving me permission to like be that more consistently online, right? Like just invite people into knowing more about my personality and maybe knowing things that like maybe felt scary to show.
I love that. I'm excited to see like this next step in your journey, because we shared a stage. I gave a speech, Chris gave a speech, and he told a room full of our colleagues that you need a coach, bitch. And it was just this revelatory moment where it's like something shifted in that room. Like I showed up to give a different kind of a talk. You showed up to give a different kind of a talk. And it was such a privilege to see like that, like you coming into that phase. And it'll be so cool to see like this next Marilyn Monroe chic, bubbly pink, fabulous.
Yeah, and that was actually really the start of it, right? It was like that talk really, that moment that you need a coach bitch, like that coming to mind and like saying that to a room full of coaches and being like, we're claiming this. Like, I'm claiming you need a coach bitch. Like, you want a Maserati? You need a coach bitch. Like, let's do this. And yeah, it's sort of been this like unfolding since that moment where it's funny because the talk that I gave was about like becoming your own authority and really like giving yourself permission and stripping away the outside voices that are influencing like how we show up in the world and really reclaiming that. And, we're always telling people what we need to hear. So it feels like it's so good to be like almost a year from that moment. And like you said, like really finally getting permission, like to show up and be 100% myself. Like it's like a full circle moment.
We love full circle moment. If we were to distill down like what your year has been like and like you said, kind of extract the goodness out to give to the listeners and bring this home, what would you extract out and what would you give?
I would say that the work of becoming your own authority, right, and developing your own voice takes time. And you want to experiment as much as you can and be so compassionate with yourself because we're running on like default programming that was given to us by the world. And you're going to create, like I created several schedules for my workday. Like once my schedule was mine that I could just create, I kept trying like reiterating. And I was doing it based on what I thought it should look like perspective. And I realized that like I needed to turn that around to like what I want it to feel like perspective. And so that is now the question that I am asking for everything. Like, how do I want it to feel? Like, what feels most like me? What do I need in this moment that's going to feel good? Right? Even if I'm in a moment where that like I'm crying or there's something heavy going on, but what would feel good for me right now? Like so much of that, like kind of being there for that little kid, that like reparenting, that like childhood work of like, how do I learn how to soothe myself and something that would actually feel comforting to me? That's how I'm going to find my voice. That's how I'm going to find my authority. How I'm going to find my permission to be me is by treating myself the way that feels the best to me.
I love that. Have you seen the Gaga people? It's an Israeli dance troupe. And
oh, yeah. Uh-huh.
Okay. So
yeah,
the
Batsheva.
Yeah. So he said something in a documentary that was really powerful to me. And he was like, some of the dancers were injured and working through pain. And he was like, what we teach is you move towards pleasure and away from pain. And I was just like, that is so good. And I keep thinking about that now. Like, and I'm not saying y'all that you live in a hedonistic fog and get nothing done. Please don't hear us incorrectly. Some of you, I could feel your inner eye roll. It was amazing. That's not what we're saying. But we are saying to within the degrees of your power to do so, like moving towards a little bit of pleasure or feeling good, even in the things that you have to do every day. Like even as Chris was saying, even in crying, finding what feels good.
Yeah. It's like, no, we're not. Yeah. We're not just like doing what feels good. It's like, we're here having a human experience and we're meant to have all these experiences. And most of the time we're experiencing negative emotion through a lens of resistance to negative emotion. Like we're not experiencing the pure emotion because we're like, well, this shouldn't be here. And we've all been sold this idea that we're supposed to feel good all the time, right? So this is actually the opposite of that. It's like, no, you're going to feel terrible. And how can you like feeling terrible?
This is what we're selling you on. Always.
Yeah,
always.
That's what we're selling you on. It's like, how can you make feeling terrible feel good? Like, not that we're wallowing in it and we're doing like an indulgence thing where I'm like, oh, my life is so hard. It's like, no, I was here to have this experience as a human being where sometimes stuff is going to suck. Like we know the world sucks. There's so much going on in the world right now. That sucks. And how do I hold space for myself in that? which should feel good because you're showing up for you. Not that you're going to like love feeling bad, but it like we're leaning into comforting ourselves.
Yeah, and I think if you all want to go, and I hope you do want to go create art or your version of art, just go create more, put more out in the world. It's not always going to feel good. And the iterative process does not always butterflies and rainbows. Sometimes it can be physically painful depending on your art form. Sometimes it can just be so mentally and emotionally painful and sometimes spiritually painful. Like we're inviting you to create more while recognizing your humanity.
Boom. That's a mic drop.
Boom. We'll leave it there then. Where can the people find you and get in on all your goodness?
You can find me on the gram. It's The Only Chris Hale. That's my Instagram handle. And it's also my website, theonlychrishale.com. I am not the only Chris Hale, but I'm the only one you need to know. And my podcast is called You Need a Coach Bitch. And yeah, I've got some fun things coming out. Like I'm working on, speaking of like finding my own schedule, I'm working on an intuitive scheduling course that I want to put out there for people to help them find a schedule and a life and a whatever that feels good to them. Yeah. So I got stuff coming up. So,
and we want to see his branding, right, y'all?
Yeah. You want to see my you want to see the new branding. It was supposed to be out by the beginning of April. I think that's getting pushed back, but very soon. So I don't know, join my mailing list, like come see me on the gram. It will all be there. You'll get to see the theme is called Pop Diva. So if that entices you to come join my world.
And it should. It absolutely should.
I'm calling my I hate the word client avatar, but I'm calling that whatever we're calling that. I'm calling her Venial Goddess.
I like you said it, you delivered it, and your face went into this full smile, just watching you right now. Right? So good.
It's Zenny. It's like Felicity, just with the big curly hair and the walking through the streets of New York, and you're Zennial Goddess. It just feels so good.
It's a mood. It's a vibe. And
it's a mood. It's a vibe.
So here for this. So we're going to leave links in the show notes on our YouTube page, all the places, and go stalk my friend because this stuff's amazing. Thank you so much for joining us today.
God. Thank you for having me. It was so good.
We out.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. To learn more about how to work with me, go to judithgaton.com. Click on the Start Here button to get access to my free personal style class. I give you a quick style win, a confidence boost, and you walk away with the tools to start getting stylish. Who doesn't love that? See you there. Miss J out.